All right, so today we're diving deep into AI in medicine. And from the research you've given us, it looks like you're really interested in a few key things, like how can we actually understand the decisions AI is making? And how can we make sure AI can be trained to work with all sorts of different data sets? And also, how do we keep that sensitive patient data protected, but still allow the AI to learn?
Yeah, you've really hit on those really important points for building trust in AI for healthcare.
Absolutely. So let's break this down a little bit. We'll start with explainable AI or XAI. I think we've all heard of these really powerful deep learning models that can diagnose diseases with incredible accuracy.
Yeah, some with like thousands of layers.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
the problem is they can kind of be like these black boxes, right?
Yeah, you put data in, you get a result out, but you don't
Yeah.
really know what's going on inside.
Right. So it's like we have this brilliant doctor who can make an amazing diagnosis, but they can't explain to us how they got there. And that's not really reassuring when it comes to our health, is it?
No, not at all. And that's where explainable AI comes in. It's about making those AI decisions transparent so we humans can understand them, which is so important when we're talking about, serious medical decisions.
So how do we actually make AI explainable? Is it like teaching it to speak our language or something?
Well, not exactly. It's actually two main ways to approach XAI. The first is by building transparency directly into the model's architecture. So, using simpler layers or adding visualization modules that let us see what's happening inside.
Oh, so it's like designing a house with glass walls. You can see everything that's going on.
Precisely. The second approach is called post hoc explainability. And this is where we actually analyze the model's behavior after it's already been trained. So we can use techniques like feature relevance analysis to see which features or inputs the model really relied on to make that decision.
So it's like we're figuring out, what clues the detective used to solve the case.
Exactly. You got it.
Okay, so can you give us an example of how that might actually look in a real medical situation?
Absolutely. So imagine we have an AI that analyzes medical images like X-rays to
Hmm.
detect pneumonia.
Okay.
And with a technique called class activation mapping, or CAM, we could create like a heat map that highlights the specific areas in that image that the model actually focused on to make that diagnosis.
So it's like the AI is pointing to the part of the X-ray where it's saying, aha, this looks like pneumonia.
Exactly. And this is really valuable for doctors because it's not just about getting a yes or no answer from the AI. It's about understanding why the AI reached that conclusion.
Right. It can help build trust in that diagnosis.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like finally being able to understand that brilliant doctor's thought process.
You got it. And there are other techniques too, like Lime and S-shape, that can be used on a bunch of different AI models, which is really helpful for comparing different models and understanding how they each come to their conclusions.
So we can start to see the different personalities of these AI models and how they each approach problem solving.
Right. And there's an important distinction to make here when we talk about understanding AI decisions. We can focus on individual decisions, or we can try to understand the overall decision-making process. And these are called local and global explainability.
So local explainability is like, why did the AI say yes to this particular patient? And global is understanding the logic behind all of its decisions across many patients.
Exactly. And while local explainability can be useful, global explainability is really what we want because that gives us a deep understanding of how the AI actually works, which allows us to use it responsibly.
So we're really starting to crack open that black box and understand these powerful medical tools.
Right now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about another big challenge in AI for medicine domain adaptation, or DA.
Okay, so from what I understand, this is about making sure that AI models can perform well even when they're looking at data that's different from the data they were originally trained on.
That's right. Think of it this way. You train an AI model to identify cancer cells in biopsy images from one hospital. But then you want to use that same model on images from a different hospital where they might use different equipment or have slightly different procedures for preparing those biopsies.
So it's like the AI is a traveler visiting a new country, right? The customs are
Yeah.
different, the language might be a bit different, and it needs to adapt to this new environment.
Exactly. And without that adaptation, the AI model might actually make mistakes because it's misinterpreting the new data.
So how do we make the AI travel? Well, what are some of the things involved in domain adaptation?
Well, there are a lot of different approaches, but they often involve things like reweighting data points, transforming features, or even using what we call adversarial training techniques, where we basically pit different parts of the AI against each other.
Ah, wow. So we're making it work harder.
Exactly, to make it more robust.
So it's like a whole art to this domain adaptation, figuring out clever ways to teach the AI to generalize its knowledge so it could be used with lots of different data sets.
It definitely is, and it's absolutely essential if we're going to use AI in real-world healthcare settings where data is constantly changing and can be from all different sources.
Right, and that actually brings us to that third key area you mentioned earlier, federated learning, or FL. And this one seems especially relevant given how sensitive patient data is.
Absolutely. Imagine this. You have multiple hospitals, each with their own valuable data set of patient information. They all want to work together to train a powerful AI model that can benefit everyone, but they can't just share all their raw data because of privacy concerns.
That's where federated learning comes in, right? It allows these institutions to collaborate without actually sharing their data.
Exactly. It's like a group of chefs, each with their own secret recipe. They want to create a new dish together, but instead of sharing their entire recipe, they each experiment in their own kitchens and then share just the key learnings, the things that made their dishes better.
So they're sharing the essence of their knowledge without giving away the specific ingredients.
It's exactly. In federated learning, each participant trains a local model on their own data, and then they send only the updates to a central server that combines those updates to create a global model.
So it's like a team effort where everyone contributes their expertise to build something much greater than what any individual could do on their own, all while protecting that sensitive information.
That's the beauty of it. And there are different types of federated learning, too. Horizontal FL is when participants have similar data structure, but different instances, like different patients.
Okay.
Vertical FL is when they have different features for the same set of individuals. And then there's federated transfer learning, which combines LFL with transfer learning to address both data privacy and domain shift issues.
Wow, there are so many layers to this. It sounds like federated learning really has the potential to unlock a whole new era of collaboration in AI and medicine, where researchers and hospitals all over the world can work together without putting patient privacy at risk. It's a game changer, really. Of course, there are still some challenges, especially when it comes to optimizing the process and ensuring the global model is accurate and strong, but the potential benefits are just enormous.
Okay, so we've covered explainable AI domain adaptation and federated learning,
Yeah.
and it seems like these are really like the three pillars of making sure AI in medicine is trustworthy.
You're spot on. But what's even more exciting is how these three areas can all work together to create truly amazing AI systems.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more about how these technologies can work together.
Well, just imagine a future where we're using domain adaptation to create this common frame of reference from all sorts of different data sets, then using federated learning to train the model on that data without sharing private information, and then using explainable AI to ensure that the whole system is transparent and trustworthy.
It's like we're building this multi-layered system, and each layer reinforces the others to create AI that's not only intelligent, but also understandable, adaptable, and trustworthy. And this integrated approach is already starting to happen. Researchers are developing new techniques that combine XAIDA and FL, so we're paving the way for a future where AI is a real partner in healthcare.
This is all so incredibly exciting, but I have to ask, are there any potential downsides or risks that we need to be aware of as these technologies become more powerful?
Yeah, you're right. It's super important to be aware of the potential downsides and to address them proactively. For
Yeah.
example, with XAI, it's important to remember that even the most advanced explainability techniques, they only offer a limited view into how these deep learning models work.
Right, they're still incredibly complex.
Exactly. So we need to be careful not to overinterpret those explanations and always remember that even explainable AI is still a tool and it needs human judgment and oversight.
So XAI helps us to ask better questions, but it doesn't necessarily give us all the answers.
Exactly. And with DA, while it's super valuable for helping models work with different data,
Mm.
we need to remember that no technique can completely eliminate the risk of bias. So careful data selection and making sure the model is validated are super important to make sure that these AI systems are fair and equitable when they're being used.
It sounds like DA is as much about the data itself as it is about the algorithms.
Yeah, and then with FFL, while it offers this great solution to data privacy issues, we need to be aware of potential security risks. So protecting those model updates and the central server is really important to prevent any data leaks or attacks.
So it sounds like the future of AI in medicine depends not just on the technology itself, but also on making sure we use these technologies responsibly and ethically.
Absolutely takes doctors, patients, researchers, policymakers, and society as a whole to make sure that happens.
Well, you've certainly given us a lot to think about. It sounds like we're on the verge of this huge revolution in healthcare powered by AI that's not only intelligent, but also understandable, adaptable, and trustworthy.
Absolutely. And don't forget, AI in medicine isn't about replacing doctors. It's about giving them powerful new tools to make better decisions faster and more personalized for every patient.
That's a perfect segue to part two of our deep dive, where we'll explore how some of these amazing techniques are being used in real medical research and healthcare. Right now, we'll be back in a flash. Welcome back. Now that we've got the basics down, are you ready to see how these ideas are being used in the real world? We're going to look at some real examples of explainable AI, domain adaptation, and federated learning right from the research that you gave us.
I'm really excited to see the details.
Yeah,
It's one thing to talk about these technologies, but seeing how they're actually being applied to real medical problems is just fascinating.
absolutely. Let's start with explainable AI or XAI. I'm really intrigued by this whole idea of being able to visualize the decision-making process of an AI. It's like being able to peek inside its brain.
Yeah, one really interesting example is in analyzing those medical images like CT scans. Researchers are using a technique called class activation mapping, or CAM, to create those heat maps that show the specific areas of an image that the AI is really focusing on when making a diagnosis.
Oh, so like if an AI is looking at a lung scan and it sees a possible tumor, CAM could actually show us exactly what part of the scan the AI is looking at.
Exactly, and this is so valuable for doctors because it's not just about getting a yes or no answer from the AI, it's about understanding why the AI came to that conclusion. Does that heat map line up with what the doctor would expect to see, or does it highlight something that the doctor maybe missed?
So it's like the AI is saying, hey, doc, take a closer look at this spot. This is what I'm seeing.
Exactly. It's more of a dialogue between the AI and the doctor, and that kind of transparency is just essential for building trust and making sure that AI is being used responsibly in healthcare.
It's amazing how XAI can actually help us learn from the AI and understand how it's reasoning and maybe even improve our own diagnostic skills.
Absolutely. Another really cool example is using XAI in preclinical research. Those very early stages of drug development. Imagine you're trying to see if a new molecule could become a drug. Researchers are using AI, specifically graph neural networks, combined with fuzzy neural networks, to analyze the properties of these molecules and predict how effective they might be.
So the AI is helping us sort through tons of data to find the most promising candidates.
That's right, but what's even more impressive is that using those XAI techniques, the researchers can actually understand why the AI thinks a particular molecule is promising, what specific features of that molecule is it looking at, and this can help guide further research and really speed up that whole drug discovery process.
It's like having an AI assistant that not only tells you where to look, but also explains why.
Exactly, and being able to understand the AI's reasoning is crucial for avoiding bias and making sure that we're developing drugs that are safe and effective for everyone.
It sounds like XAI has the potential to really change not just how we diagnose diseases, but also how we develop new treatments.
Speaking of big changes, let's move on to domain adaptation, or DA. This is all about making sure that our AI models can really perform well out in the real world where data is messy and comes from lots of different places.
It's like teaching an AI to navigate a busy city where the rules might change from block to block.
That's a great way to think about it, and it's especially important in medical imaging, where there are all sorts of variations in the scanners, the procedures, and the patients themselves. Imagine an AI model trained to analyze CT scans from one specific machine. If you try to use that same model on scans from a different machine, it might not work as well because the images look a little bit different.
So DA is like teaching the AI to adjust its vision to account for all these variations and still be able to make an accurate diagnosis.
Exactly. One study actually focused on diagnosing gastric epithelial tumors, which can be really tricky because they often look very similar to normal tissue. And the researchers used a generative adversarial network, or GAN, for domain adaptation. And it significantly improved the accuracy of the model.
So instead of having to train a whole new AI for each different machine or hospital, we can actually use DA to fine-tune our models and make them more adaptable.
That's right. It's all about making AI more reliable so it can perform consistently, even when the data looks different from what it was trained on.
This is really important for making AI-powered healthcare accessible to everyone, right? We don't want it to only work in a few specialized centers with the latest equipment.
Absolutely. And those GANs, those generative adversarial networks that we talked about, they're proving to be a really powerful tool for domain adaptation in a lot of different medical applications. Like, researchers are using a type of GAN called cycleban for cross-domain adaptation and biometric identification using those photoplethysmogram signals.
Okay, can you break that down for me? What are photoplethysmogram signals and why is this important?
Sure, those photoplethysmogram signals, or PPG signals, are basically light-based measurements that can pick up changes in blood volume in your tissues.
Hmm.
They're using those wearable fitness trackers to measure your heart rate.
Oh, so it's like using the light sensor on your smartwatch to actually identify you.
Exactly. But the challenge is that these PPG signals can be really different from person to person and device to device.
Hmm.
That's where CycleGAN comes in. It helps the AI models learn to recognize people accurately, even if they're using different wearables.
That could be a game changer for remote patient monitoring and personalized healthcare. Imagine being able to track your vital signs and maybe even spot potential problems just using data from your smartwatch.
That's the idea. And it shows just how powerful domain adaptation can be in making AI more versatile and usable in so many healthcare situations.
All right, let's move on to that third pillar of trustworthy AI in medicine federated learning, or FL. This is where that idea of collaboration without sharing data really shines through.
It really does. And we have an incredible example from the fight against COVID-19. Researchers actually used a horizontal federated learning approach to train a model that could predict clinical outcomes in COVID-19 patients. They used data from 20 institutions all over the world.
Wow, so they were able to combine knowledge from all these different hospitals to build a more powerful model without compromising patient privacy.
Exactly. The model was called XAM, and it was designed with something called differential privacy, which adds a bit of noise to the data to further protect people's privacy. This kind of collaboration just wouldn't have been possible without federated learning. It really shows how we can come together even in a global crisis to build AI solutions that benefit everyone.
It's a powerful example of how FL can accelerate medical research and improve patient care globally.
And this is just the beginning. Researchers are looking into FL for all sorts of applications, from diagnosing eye conditions like diabetic retinopathy to predicting risks of complications in various diseases.
So it's not just for those big global challenges like pandemics. FL can also be used to improve everyday healthcare in so many ways.
Exactly. One study used federated transfer learning to diagnose diabetic retinopathy using data from different sources, and they compared different FL frameworks like FedAge and FedProx and showed how effective this approach can be for improving disease detection while still keeping that data private.
It seems like we're still in the early stages of FL, but the potential for medical AI is huge.
Absolutely. As we develop even more sophisticated techniques, we can expect to see even more collaborative and impactful AI solutions in healthcare.
Now, I'm curious, how do all these pieces fit together? We've been talking about XAIDA and FL as separate concepts, but it seems like the real magic happens when they all work together.
You're absolutely right. The real power of AI in medicine comes from integrating all of these approaches.
Yeah.
Imagine using DA to create a common foundation from all sorts of different data sets, then using FL to train models on that data without sharing any private information, and finally using XAI to make sure the whole system is transparent and trustworthy.
It's like building this multi-layered system where each layer supports the others to create AI that's not only intelligent, but also understandable, adaptable, and reliable.
And this integrated approach is already starting to show some really promising results. Researchers are coming up with new techniques that combine XAI, DA, and FL, and this is really paving the way for a future where AI is a trusted partner in healthcare.
This is all so incredibly exciting, but I have to ask, are there any potential downsides or risks we should be aware of as these technologies become more powerful?
Of course, you're right. It's incredibly important to be mindful of potential downsides and to proactively address them, for instance, with XAI. It's important to remember that even the most sophisticated explainability techniques only give us a glimpse into how these complex deep learning models actually work.
Right, they're still incredibly complex.
Exactly. So we have to be careful not to overinterpret those explanations.
Right, yeah.
And always keep in mind that even explainable AI is still just a tool, and it needs human judgment and oversight.
So XAI helps us to ask better questions, but it doesn't necessarily provide all the answers.
Precisely. And with DA, while it's super valuable for making models more generalizable, we need to remember that no single technique can completely eliminate the risk of bias.
Right.
So careful data selection and proper model validation are both crucial to ensure that AI systems are fair and equitable in how they're applied.
It sounds like DA is as much about the data itself as it is about the
You
algorithms.
got it. And with FL, while it offers a great solution to those data privacy challenges, it's crucial to be aware of potential security risks. So protecting those model updates and ensuring the integrity of that central server are paramount to prevent data leakage or malicious attacks. We really need a solid security foundation if we want to achieve that vision of privacy-preserving AI.
These are all really important things to consider. It seems like the future of AI in medicine depends not only on those technological advances, but also on our ability to use them responsibly and ethically.
Absolutely. And that brings us perfectly to our final part, where we'll explore all the exciting possibilities and potential pitfalls that lie ahead as AI continues to reshape the world of healthcare. Stay tuned.
And we're back, ready to look ahead to the future. We've talked about explainable AI domain adaptation and federated learning, those building blocks of trustworthy AI, and how they're already being used out in the world.
Yeah, and now it's time to look ahead and think, what's next for AI in healthcare? What possibilities are out there, and what potential problems do we need to keep in mind as we move into this new territory?
It feels like we're really on the edge of something big. So,
Huh.
where do you see AI having the most impact in the coming years?
One area that's really promising is personalized medicine. Imagine a world where treatments are tailored not just to your disease, but to your specific genes, lifestyle, even your environment.
So, it's like moving away from that one size fits all approach and towards healthcare that's really individualized.
Exactly. And AI is already being used to analyze huge genomic data sets, looking for patterns and insights that can help us understand how different people might respond to different treatments.
So it's like having this medical detective that can unlock the secrets in our DNA and give us clues to prevent, diagnose, and treat diseases better.
Right, and that's just one example. AI is also being used to develop new drugs and therapies to speed up clinical trials, even to predict outbreaks of infectious diseases, so we can stay ahead of emerging health threats.
It sounds like AI could really touch every part of healthcare, from the lab to the clinic to our own homes.
It really does. But as we're embracing all these advancements, we need to remember the ethical side of things. Making sure that AI is used responsibly, fairly, and always with the patient's best interests in mind.
That makes sense. So, what are some of the biggest ethical challenges we need to think about as AI becomes a bigger part of healthcare?
One of the toughest ones is transparency. As AI systems get more complex, it can be hard to understand how they're actually making decisions.
Right.
And that lack of transparency can make people less trusting and make it harder to hold these AI systems accountable if something goes wrong.
So, explainable AI becomes even more important as AI starts making more decisions in healthcare.
Absolutely. We also need to think carefully about how humans will oversee AI in healthcare.
Right.
AI should be a tool to help human intelligence, not replace it.
Right.
Doctors and other healthcare professionals need to be trained to understand and interpret what the AI is telling them, and then use their own judgment and experience to make the final decision.
So it's about humans and AI working together as partners.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And another crucial thing is data privacy and security. As we're collecting and analyzing more health data, we need to make sure it's protected from unauthorized access or misuse.
Right.
That's where federated learning can be really valuable. It allows us to use the power of all that data while still protecting patient privacy.
So as we've been talking about all along, the future of AI in medicine isn't just about the technology, it's also about using that technology in a responsible and ethical way.
Exactly. It's going to take all of us, doctors, patients, researchers, policymakers, and society as a whole to make sure that happens.
Well, you've definitely given us a lot to think about as we wrap up this deep dive. What's the one thing you really hope our listeners will remember?
I think the biggest thing is that AI has the potential to really revolutionize healthcare in so many ways. But it's up to all of us to shape that future.
Yeah.
We need to have those conversations about the ethical implications of AI, advocate for responsible development and use, and ensure that these powerful technologies are used to benefit everyone.
That's a great message. And I think as we've seen, AI in medicine is a field that's constantly evolving. It's full of both amazing possibilities and big challenges, but ultimately its success depends on our ability to balance that technological innovation with human values. So AI can truly be a force for good in healthcare.
Absolutely.
So for everyone listening out there, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and made you think about how AI is changing the future of healthcare. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one to make that next big breakthrough in AI for medicine.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. It's been great exploring these topics with you.
It has. We're excited to see what's next for AI and medicine and can't wait to see the amazing things you all discover along the way.